Good after one. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Self. It's a little after 1 o'clock on the East Coast. It's a little after 10 in Los Angeles, and it's just afternoon in Texas. Welcome to Lunch and Learn. Today, we're going to focus on an important topic: the job market. People are asking me all the time, "What the hell is going on?" I hear about all these jobs available, and I can't find one. And I've got great credentials, a great academic background, and a great record of accomplishment. What is happening and what can I do about it? That's a really common question. That's what we're going to focus on today. So thank you for joining us. I think we become what we need to be by remaining. We can't become what we need to be by remaining where we are. And I think that's one of the big issues in career coaching and in our lives. All of us, I'm included. I'm included with you. And that is we stay in our safe zone. Now, I have had an interesting transition since I left the world of recruiting, which I was very comfortable with and which relied on my skills of relationship marketing and relationship development. And now I'm in a digital world. There's a black box on my desk, smoke's coming out of it, and I think mirrors are involved. But it's a big change for me. But I can't succeed in doing this work, which I really love, by remaining where I am. And so I'm having to do things that I don't like doing, which is doing a lot of reading, not informative reading to become a better coach and stay abreast of issues, but technical reading on how to manage mail list and to get up to date on the dialect and the technology and the slang that the digital world relies on. So that's just, I think, an overarching theme from Oprah Winfrey. A lot of people kind of diss her because they don't like her politics or whatever. But, that's to each his own. But we can't become what we need to be by remaining where we are. And you've got to admit, she broke out as a news person, then got fired, reinvented herself, lost a lot of weight, really has worked hard on evolving her brand. And so I think she has plenty of street cred there. I think the other thing that we're all face is that we're being bombarded by change, and this change that we're expected to make, we're hampered by our past experiences. We're always looking in the rearview mirror. I am right there with you. I think about how I did things as a recruiter, how I did things as senior VP of business development for affiliated hospitals at Herman, and it was it played to my natural, strengths and instincts. And today, the change is coming so fast in digital marketing and in the world of recruiting and talent acquisition. And I agree with you. It's hard to keep up, and it's really, really demoralizing. But we have to break free of our past experiences, because if we hold on to those, we can't move forward. So do not let what you want to do keep you from what you need to do. And I think that's a great line from Nick Saban, who built a powerhouse in football and was probably one of the most incredible coaches in modern coaching history, because he was very focused. He tried to take the people in his program and make them better men. He tried to instill discipline in them, and the fact that they had to stay focused if they wanted to be exceptional. If you want to move into the elite level of college football, you have to do all those things. And Saban was great at reminding his players, sometimes noisily, where they needed to improve. And so I think that this is another overarching theme that I think we need to keep in our mind today as we explore the issues we're all facing. When your life is turned upside down, it's really hard to really see
Children's
opportunities.
admiration is important to you?
Yeah, it was.
Well, I doubt they ever admired you, Bob.
Hey, asshole, aren't you supposed to be consoling me?
I'm not a shrink, Bob. I'm a wake-up call. You know why kids love athletes?
I don't know, because they screw lingerie models.
No, that's why we love athletes. Kids love athletes because they follow their dreams.
Well, I can't dunk.
No, but you can cook.
What are you talking about?
Your resume says that you minored in French culinary arts. Most students, they're working the fryer at KFC, but you bust tables at Il Picatore to support yourself. And then you get out of college, and you come and you work here. How much did they first pay you to give up on your dreams?
$27 grand a year.
And when were you going to stop and come back and do what makes you happy?
Good question.
I see guys who work at the same company for their entire lives, guys exactly like you. They clock in, they clock out, and they never have a moment of happiness. You have an opportunity here, Bob. This is a rebirth. Now, if not for you, do it for your children.
I think that that's a message for all of us. And just like you, in my own way with my practice, I'm looking for work. And it's hard. I know it's hard for you, and it's hard for me because there's a lot of competition. And in order to be able to attract people in the digital world, you have to have a unique message. And if your message isn't resonating with what you're doing and how you're doing it, you've got to be willing to change. And that makes all of us uncomfortable. So as you think about your job search, please understand this, that I struggle with all the change just like anybody else. I try to stay ahead of it because that's the business I'm in. Am I always gracious about it? Oh gosh, no. So I think that we want to keep that message in mind and don't give up on our dreams. Now let's focus on what we want to talk about today. Why is this happening? More importantly, why is this happening to me? Then, John, what's the jobs outlook going forward? I mean, what chance do I have? What can I do to change the cadence of the rhythm of what I'm doing? And finally, what is my outlook for not just finding a job, but the future? So let's get into it. I think one of the things, why is this happening? Well, I've talked to a lot of people. I've watched a lot of videos from some pretty bright people and who are sort of thought leaders. And basically what they're saying is that things have changed, not just and how we do things, but structurally things have changed. For example, in the 50s and 60s, into the mid 70s, you hardly ever heard of any big layoffs based on shareholder value or we needed to get our expenses under control for the quarter. Because we weren't a quarter-to-quarter based environment, although we've had 4 quarters in the business calendar forever. But businesses weren't just focused on short term. They were looking at the long-term value of the company and sustainability. Coca-Cola was absolutely amazing at doing that because they refused to provide guidance to the investors. And the investors didn't like it. Coke said, tough luck. We're not managing for short term. We're not managing for the immediate gratification of our shareholders. If they want to invest in our company, they need to understand that we're long-term value leadership. We're a long-term value leadership team, and we're not going to go month to month, quarter to quarter. Well, we've now become very short-term in our focus, and we've become, shareholder rights, which, they have a right to invest, and they have an expectation, not a right, to make a profit. And business executives have a right to fair compensation, and they have a right, if they do a good job, to earn a reasonable bonus in return for their effort. But everything is out of whack now. So in capitalism that we know today, which is all short term, which people get laid off because the CEO wants a damn bonus, or that we're worried about what the investors may think if we don't make our numbers, or we may be bad-mouthed on CNBC or Bloomberg. We've got to stop that because that is destroying, it's destroying the balance in our economy. And the economy is a series of sort of negotiated compromises, and so when something gets out of balance, the economy becomes more vulnerable. Something else that's happening, it's called job extension. And we've discussed that before, but if you're new to this group coaching session, let me tell you that job extension began in the 2012. And it basically was a concept that said, we got 3 presidents running 3 businesses or 3 general managers who run these plants, and they're within a certain mileage parameter of each other. We have one big plant, so let's get the CEO at the big plant or the general manager at the big plant and call him the market general manager, and then have chief administrative officers for much less money.
Crown, +1. 631-833-05.
Somebody wants something for free. They were trying to call me, and I apologize that, but I have to keep the phone on to stay in tune with what's going on. So back to it. So we're back to it now. I really do apologize. I use it for one of my monitors, and so people then try to call me and without any appointments or anything, and I work off appointments. Okay, let's get focused again. So they take the one general manager, okay, and spread him out and get rid of all the other general managers in those other 3 or 4 plants. At Emory University Health in Atlanta, they got rid of 6 local hospital CEOs and became a regional sort of pod, and had 1 president and 5 general administrative officers. Made less money. The CEOs left because they didn't want to take a step back or make less money. They wanted to be CEOs, and so they were left to go find work someplace else. That's job extension, and that's just 2 kind of very basic examples. It's cutting across all industries. If not consolidation regionally, it is happening internally. Microsoft, Amazon are now asking their senior managers and executives to take on more responsibility and supervise more direct reports. So when you do that, you have fewer executives, that when you do that, you have fewer jobs available. And so that's part of what's happening. The new capitalism destabilizing the economy, job extension, which is now becoming somewhat rampant, is limiting the number of positions available. And there was one other advance we're going to talk about in just a second. But first, we want to talk about technology and how that's upset the job market. It's dehumanizing recruiting. Why do we say that? Because in order to make things more efficient and to try to drive out prejudice and bias in the early phases of recruiting, corporations in the late 1990s began installing what is called applicant tracking systems. Initially, they were fair, but a lot of people didn't understand what was happening. Companies didn't exactly promote it and explain what was happening because they were always getting more qualified people than they needed. So it was kind of a big secret. And people got really frustrated to the point that a lot of job seekers referred to ATS as applicant tossing systems. So that's upset the market. Another thing that's upset the market is you're now applying online. That is a big mistake, a big mistake. You need to wean yourself off that drug habit. I know you need a job, and so it's really tempting to go onto a job board or someplace else and start applying for jobs, LinkedIn, whatever. Don't apply for a job unless it's also posted on the company's website, because it could be a phantom. A lot of those lower people and managers and the supervisor level and below, some of the jobs on iHire, ZipRecruiter, Indeed are phantom. They're not. They were real jobs, but the company's simply not hiring in those positions. They're freezing them. And so everybody keeps applying and nobody tells them, oh, I'm sorry, that position's not active. So you have all this, the online application process, which you need to break yourself from, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, is also really screwing things up. And it makes it more difficult for people to find work. So not only is the market against you if you're an executive or manager in terms of more people looking than there are available jobs, the technology is in there screwing things up as well. And then along came the COVID crisis, and everybody kind of shut down. Nobody knew what the long-term applications were, and people started working from home. And everybody suddenly had to learn to deal with Zoom or Microsoft Meetings or Google Meetup or whatever all those kind of things were. And people, a lot of people dislike that, and so there's been a lot of pushback post-COVID to go back to the office because a lot of people, especially in the Northeast, were commuting a long way to work. Even if you lived in a nice suburb on Long Island, it could take you 45 minutes to an hour plus the cost of a train ticket. And so people thought, I've got a better life. I'm getting my work done. I'm saving time out of my day, and I can spend more time with my family. And so they really liked it. But a lot of executives saw all that empty space in their offices, and in some cases, companies had just built new corporate headquarters when the COVID shutdown occurred, and so they felt very nervous with their boards about all this empty space. They knew they were going to be asked to pare it down, and so they issued automatic return to work orders. Now, you would have thought that would have spurred executives recruitment again, but no, it has not. I think one of the things that's also happening, and that is there's been a reset, and whether it's a reset that stays in place, but it's currently a reset in the philosophy on organizational structure. Organizations are saying, hey, we don't need all those high-priced executives. We can just assign more of these people to fewer executives and put tougher performance requirements on everybody up and down the line. And so that's another reason you're not seeing an acceleration in hiring. There is a reset in the philosophy of what an organization should look like and how many executives do you need. Finally, we're also having to deal with economic uncertainties, and that affects you as well. I was in a networking group with some really great people, and there were some people who were pretty strong for the MAGA point of view, and they were all convinced that now that Mr. Trump had been elected, this was in December, now that he'd been elected, all these companies are going to immediately start hiring to get it all wrapped up by the end of the year. Well, that was somebody who had better hopes than good sense. And he's probably a very smart guy, and it made sense to that individual. But there wasn't a lot of hiring because this was December, and there's never a lot of hiring in December. I don't care who the president is. In fact, a lot of executives were beginning to slow down, take holiday, take time off, because some of these companies that you have to take X number of days off in a year. So people weren't hiring. And so then in the new year, whether it's everything's great, everything's running along according to Hoyle, you never really get a pickup in hiring until probably late February, mid-March. And so we are now approaching, the start of February, and it'll be interesting to see if there is any noticeable or measurable increase in in executive hiring. So then that begs the question, and I sometimes feel this way about. I was a star in relationship marketing, but I struggle with digital marketing. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to you? Well, again, volatility and uncertainty in the markets, that has a big effect. And so, we can't do anything about that. People have gotten laid off through no fault of their own. This is, people get sacked all the time for bad performance or doing things they should not do and been told not to do. But a lot of the workers out there that are looking for jobs are not slackers. They are not out there because they deliberately did a bad job or that their performance wasn't up to expectation. There are a lot of great people out there. That's when you do get called in for an interview, you're going to be shocked at how many people there are and how many people have credentials that are equal to yours or performance record that's equal to you or better. And so I think that's what's going on. There are a lot of people out there looking. A lot of these weren't slackers. And so you're competing against some pretty tough people. We've all made bad choices. This is the third thing why things are happening to us. So if you've made bad choices, think about what you did, why you did it, and what you learned from that lesson. If you don't, you're going to repeat it. Okay. You have to understand that going forward, you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room. So you have to really think very carefully about why you're taking a job, and is it the right job for you? And have you asked all the questions? Do you understand expectations? And is there great clarity in what you need to do and how they're going to judge your performance? Now, another thing that's very, very common, why this is happening to me, is people don't quite plan their careers. They have no emergency preparedness. They have no options if something bad happens. And that is something I cannot recommend enough. You don't have to hire me to do it. I can help you do it and do it a lot faster and a lot better, perhaps, because I've had a lot more experience doing it for personal career plans. But you can do this yourself. And what you're looking for is, where do I want to end up? Where do I want to be in 10 or 15 years or 20 years, depending on your age? And what do I have to do to get to that goal? And what am I going to do if something along the way derails me. If there's a recession or there is a big merger, what are my steps? How am I going to, minimize damage to my career and minimize any significant loss of time between jobs? So you're always keeping your options open, but you got to know what your options are before you can keep them open. People say that all the time, and I say, well, tell me about your options. Well, I'll handle that when the time comes. That's too late. In this market, with everything the way it is, with the uncertainty, with the technology, with the intense competition for leadership positions, you can't wait that long. You've got to build a network that's aligned with your plans. And so I think that no career plan, no emergency preparedness options is a recipe for derailment or some gaps in your resume and a lot of heartache and anxiety. Now, another thing that is very common, and most of you are out there who are struggling right now, you have failed to build and update your career network. And I know that when I just say that, I'm stepping on some sore tail cats out there. But the truth is that is central to having a career without a lot of angst and without a lot of gaps in your resume. The chances of making a mistake in a job, I mean, that's significant. If you look at all the people that are recruited from outside a company that take over, 40% are gone within 18 months because it was a bad recruiting match or there was not good communications regarding expectations. So that's a pretty daunting number. So you want to be sure that you keep your network strong. Somebody said, well, when should I start networking? I said, you don't stop. The first, if you stop to take a break while you were getting a job, then start the first day you go to work for a different organization. You never stop. And I think if you fail to build up a career network, there are some significant consequences. Probably the most problematic issue of why this is happening to me, it's our default position. And it's pretty deeply ingrained, so it's really hard to get people to acknowledge this and then not only acknowledge it, but change. And that is the default position for all of us is our comfort zone. I used to think when I had a tough day, my comfort zone was down at Charlie Trotter's, a great restaurant in Dallas, and I would go sit in the bar and have a martini and have a nice meal and visit with people, and that would always cheer me up. That was my comfort zone. In reality, probably what I should have done was stayed in, had a light dinner, and tried to sort out what went wrong and what I could have done better. But our comfort zones, we don't want to network. That's a big one for a lot of people. We don't want to call people on the phone we don't know. That's problematic in today's environment. And you can say, well, I just don't feel comfortable doing it. Okay, but there are consequences to that. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, you have to understand that you will have probably a more prolonged job search, or you're going to end up with a job that's something you had to settle for, not something you wanted to do. So these are all things that you don't get to pick and choose which ones you want to do. You got to do all of this. So what's the job outlook? Well, for those of you who follow me on a regular basis, you probably know that you probably think that I'm a negative person, that all I care about is the negative side of life. Not a chance. I'm very hopeful. I didn't vote for President Trump, but I wish him Godspeed in being successful. We're in a very unique market right now, and there's not a lot of room for error. So what's going on? What's the job outlook? Well, even with the return to office mandates, companies are not accelerating their executive hiring. And I think a lot of that is, they're looking very carefully at their expenses. And yesterday on CNBC, 3 to 4 executives of significant companies had all basically said this: a CEO would be out of their mind to hire a lot of people and take on a lot of expense now because we don't know how things are going to settle out. Every new administration brings changes in regulatory, and also stimulates a bit of economic uncertainty. For example, immigration. Well, we have a huge building challenge facing us in California. And if we deport all the illegal immigrants in that area, a lot of whom work in construction, it could extend, according to urban planners, it could extend the rebuilding time from 10 years to 20 or 30. And some people say as much as 40 years to get back to where they were before the fires. There are over 20,000 buildings and businesses and schools that have to be rebuilt, plus 12,000 homes. So that's going to put a real strong demand on home building materials, particularly lumber. If we end up not settling our dispute with Canada, although it's on a save face pause right now, and everything that they agreed to do, Canada was already doing. So I'm not sure who was trying to save face, but I think it was the guy in Washington. But the point is, that's on a 30-day pause. But if they put a 25% import on lumber, the cost of rebuilding those houses, for people, some of whom did not have insurance or did not have replacement cost insurance, lumber and all other related building materials will go through the roof. And so in our economy, you want to be sure that our leaders, whether it's a corporate or at the government level, have a fundamental understanding that you have to compromise, and that you have to understand that sometimes just I'm going to be decisive sometimes is not the right answer. So, and we already are seeing in the agricultural sector that 20 to 50% of the workers are not showing up to work on farms in California and Florida. And as the roundup continues, which I understand we have to have secure borders, but as the roundup continues, more and more of those workers are going to hide under the rocks because they don't want to be deported. They came here for a better life. A lot of them are hard workers. And I will tell you, I've never seen an illegal immigrant steal a job from a white person picking strawberries in Florida. It's work that Americans don't want to do, but we depend on that for trying to keep our food costs down. So if we deport a lot of people and there's a shortage of workers, our food prices will go up. Now, from a market's point of view, somebody I follow a lot is Paul Tudor Jones, who runs a company called Just Capital. You've heard about, Just Leadership. And there is ample evidence that show that companies that take care of their employees, that pay them at market or above market, have good benefit programs, including ample time off for having babies or family leave, et cetera. They tend to perform better than those that don't. Number one, again, this year was Hewlett Packard. And some of these companies in the Just 10, the Just survey, they survey businesses every year. The top 10 in the Just survey all outperform the Russell 500 or the Russell 1000. And so I think this is just something that right now, Paul Tudor Jones said on CNBC, the markets are on shakier ground than the last time Trump imposed tariffs. And we refer to that as Trump 1.0. So he believes, and a lot of other people believe, right now the uncertainty is driven by the fact that the economy has a lot of issues. And although we're creating a lot of jobs and things seem to be going along well, it's a lot shakier than most people realize, and there's no room for error. And so that is creating a lot of the uncertainty on the part of the hiring groups. So I think, what's the outlook? Well, for an acceleration in executive and management hiring for the midterm range, I think it's negative. I don't think you're going to see any big increase in hiring through at least the mid-year. I think structural reorganization and a reset is occurring, and that may suggest that we'll never get back to the number of positions we had pre-pandemic. So don't look for a sudden change in hiring. That doesn't mean you sit back and wait till the market improves before you can get a job. No, it means that you have to work harder and smarter. So we're going to talk now about some things that you can do. So what can I do to change? Well, I would say this, that some days you're going to be on top of the ball, and some days the ball is going to be on top of you. And I think you can't dwell on the bad days. Now, I will tell you that although I have been extremely successful in my career, and I've been very, very, very blessed, doing what I'm doing now is so different that I'm right with you. I have good days and bad days. And I spend a lot of time every day reading, trying to stay current, looking for trends, looking for ideas that I can use to help you get a better job. So, and that part of the job I like. The digital piece, trying to understand everything with the terminology, is really, really tough for me. And so I've had days that I've just wanted to quit. Those are days that the damn ball is on top of me. And so what you got to do is try to shimmy yourself back on top of the ball and not dwell on the bad days. But you can't, when you slip off, you can't stay under the ball. That's not an option unless you can afford to retire now. Now, I think I said this earlier in our presentation today, and that is you can't stay in your comfort zone. You got to get the fat out of Dodge. It's not a place to find a job. And I've got one too. And there's an old story about a king sent his people, off to battle, and when they landed to attack the opposing country, they burned the boats so that the warriors couldn't retreat. They had to succeed. They had to conquer because they had no way. There was no going back. So that's kind of a cruel way to approach things, but you kind of have to set that mindset for you to get yourself out of your comfort zone. I work with a lot of physicians, and physicians, they're really reluctant. And I apologize. They opened the office studio window earlier today for fresh air, and the allergies are bugging me again, something I constantly have to deal with. So thank you for your patience. But they were trained as really elite professionals, and that was hard work. And they occupy a place in society, particularly people in their physicians in their early, mid, late 60s, approaching retirement. And it's very difficult for some of those people to change. Now that we have a lot of physicians who are executives, they're subject to termination or, mergers like anybody else. And so, they struggle with doing what they have to do in today's job market to be visible and to engage with people. And, one physician who I absolutely love dealing with, he's just a prince of a man. Was very pushbacky when I, pushbacky, that's a great term. He pushed back when I said, you need, dress up your LinkedIn page so that people can see it. I don't want to do that. I've worked hard to establish my credentials. I'm a physician. And he was a very good cardiothoracic surgeon. But it just grated on him that he was now going to have to do and think of himself as a brand. And he still, I think, struggles with that a little bit. And, it's a challenge to help him cross that line. But I tell you, if you're not pushing your brand, if you're not on LinkedIn, posting information, news, comments that are, reflective of your skills and your thought leadership, the scanners are not going to see you. And if the scanners don't see you, you're going to be invisible to a lot of corporate recruiters. And those people are the ones doing more and more of the searches as companies try to wean themselves from high-cost search firms. And more you're seeing search firms consolidate. The bigger ones are getting bigger and the smaller ones are disappearing. And I was a small boutique firm and I saw the writing on the wall. And you don't want to leave the boat until it's almost underwater. So that's why I made a career change, and I've made 4 of those in my life to kind of make transition when things were beginning to change. So we all have to do what we need to do. But and what we must do. Our default position is what we want to do. So want to do, that's a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday or an evening. But what you must do, what you need to do, is Monday through Thursday afternoon. And you have to go through and have a set of tasks and hold yourself accountable for doing the things that will help you find a job. You have to plan your day. You have to do those tasks that connect with employers or employment resources. So many of the jobs now are not listed, and so 70% of them aren't listed. So how are they being filled? Well, some of them are being farmed out to executive search firms. A lot of them are being filled by referrals. That's why you have to have a network. That's why you have to be visible on LinkedIn so that the organization that's trying to hire somebody, if they hire LinkedIn to secure 200 or 500 LinkedIn profiles that match their algorithm, if you're not active on LinkedIn, nobody's going to know you're there. So you have to become more intentional every day with everything you do. And I think the other thing, you got to ignore all the competitors. I mean, if I thought about all the career coaches I have to compete against, I would be really, really depressed. And so you just have to block that out of your mind. Sort of like as I once told somebody, and everybody laughed when I said it, and I apologize if you're offended, but most of us never wanted to think about our parents having sex or our kids having sex. We just can't imagine that in our brains. That's great because God put that mechanism in our minds so that we didn't have to, that we weren't going to be able to think about that. You can't. So apply that to your competitors. There may be 300 people applying for the job that you're seeking. Block it out. What you have to do is everything you need to do to make your resume sell your value, to be sure that that resume is a stunning, elite first interview, because that's what a resume is. And then you must be prepared and focused on every other every other interview you do. And if you're not, you probably won't advance. So the other thing I would say, now that I want to get back in the stream here, you want to focus on your goals. Finding a job, or maybe buying a business or starting a business, but lose the excuses. We are, there are lies we tell ourselves. Oh, I can't do that. I don't have enough capital to buy a business. There are all kinds of ways you can succeed. Get off your keister and start looking for ways to succeed. I ran into and had some exchange with a lady by the name of Cody Sanchez, who was a world-class investor, very innovative. And the old white guys in her firm in San Diego didn't like the way she was bringing in a lot of money from Mexico to that fund. And so they kind of pushed her out. And they said, if you want to stay, you have to do it our way. And she turned around and left. And it's built a great consulting practice teaching people how to do owner financing acquisitions. And if a business has good cash flow, then you don't have to have as much money to put down. If you can get an owner who's trying to get the real value out of his business, he doesn't have a lot of choices. He's going to find somebody who's going to lowball him an offer, or private equity is going to come through and strip the business bone dry, and his legacy will be, a scrap pile. Or he can find somebody like you, somebody who cares about what you do, somebody who's really has closely, intimately acquainted with success and hard work. And you can go to those people and say, look, I'll pay you more than you're asking if you'll give me a favorable interest rate, so that every month I can pay you a portion of what I owe you, and you have an income stream for this business. And so there are a lot of owners that are saying, okay, and the young person buying the business says, I want you to be my advisor to kind of help me. And there'll be things that I want to do that you may not think will work, and we have to change and adapt. And that's one of the things I bring to the table. If you look at some of the service businesses in places like Tyler, trying to get a window washer here is unbelievably difficult. And none of them have online appointments. None of them have online communication. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean a lot to me, but a lot of the young Generation X and the millennials that are now owning homes and buying homes that need these services, that's the way they operate. That's the way they think. More and more hospitals and physicians have converted to their appointments through Epic and some other programs. So it's all about online. Your notes from your visit are online. You can make or cancel an appointment online. That's the way it's going. And so if you buy a business that's service oriented, that's a great way you can disrupt the market with the older owners of the other companies. Now, one of the other points I want to make as we start down to land this airplane here is that networking is where success begins. I've been networking all my life. When I was selling helicopters to hospitals, I was constantly talking to people about who they thought would be good sponsors, the organizations that were really qualified because of their academic affiliation or their strong medical staff, private medical staff that had really taken pride in doing regional tertiary care. And I would talk to people in the industry to get names and people that I could reach out to. That's why I was so successful. I was not a successful salesperson necessarily. I sold because I was enthusiastic, and because I had a strong network, and because I was able to find out who would be receptive to my approach. So I didn't waste a lot of time. That's what networking can do in terms of building your business, whether you're buying one from a retiring owner or whether you're trying to find a job or whether you're trying to build a division for an employer. Networking is where everything begins and ends. And, we can't use excuses. Oh, I don't like that. All right. I'm uncomfortable doing that. Or I do a lot of networking, which a lot of times means they talk to their friends, which are never going to help them find a job. So don't lie to yourself. Don't make up excuses, and don't become a slacker. You're better than that. Okay, you can't present yourself as a competent executive if you aren't competent at doing the things of running your career and running your job search. So you have to understand, I know some recruiters now that are asking people, why have you been out of work so long? And if they don't have a compelling answer, they're done. Okay. So networking is where success begins, and networking is where success ends. So you have to network. It's not really an option. What's the outlook, John? Well, let's talk about some questions. What do you want it to be? Okay. There are a lot of people looking for jobs. You have to stand out from the crowd because you know where you're going. You know what you want to do. Okay. And it requires exceptional effort, and you got to keep your goal front and center. And so one of the things you can't do is sit around home waiting for the phone to ring, because that's a bad strategy. If you're thinking, maybe I'd like to own a business, then you have to get out and start doing the things that it takes to do that. Talk to people in the community. Talk to people that you can establish contacts with. If you're in a metropolitan area, there are ample resources. Businessmen, who people who live in communities, people at clubs. They hear owners talking about, "Gosh, I wish I could sell my business." That's how you're going to find out how you can do that and find one of these businesses you can acquire with owner financing. You can find out who's looking for work, who's out there going to hire, who's starting a new business, who's starting a new division, what healthcare organization is going more ambulatory and they're going to do something really innovative, and you're a really innovative person. You have to network. It requires exceptional effort in that regard, and you have to do it with your career front and center. So here are the takeaways. And the takeaways today are really a series of questions. First of all, can you break free of your comfort zone? I mean, what do you want, and what will you be willing to do to succeed? You got to decide that today, if not by Friday. If you've been out of work, or if you took a job and it didn't work out, that I'm sorry, and I care for people that go through that awful experience, and I'll do whatever I can to help. But the first thing you got to do is be willing to get out of your comfort zone and say, I've got to make this happen, because if I don't, I'm in trouble. No one will come to save me. Are you willing to commit to a search plan and then hold yourself accountable for what you do every day? Okay. And you're not, if you're just sitting around reading magazines hoping the phone rings, or you're kind of occasionally send out an email or do this, it's going to take a lot longer to find a job. You have to be very, very aggressive. You have to post on LinkedIn. Now, if you say, okay, I'm going to change directions, then your LinkedIn profile needs to reflect that. And when you say, I'm going to change careers, your networking needs to reflect that. You have to hold yourself accountable, including your daily work plan. If you don't have a daily work plan, you're going to bounce around. And I can tell you, I'm the world's worst. If I don't plan my day early in the morning when I get home from the gym, about 5:30, then I'm usually behind all day. And at the end of the day, I can a lot of times say, God, that wasn't a very good day. It wasn't very effective. I did not advance my message to anybody that was looking to hire a coach. You also have to be willing to focus on what you can control and push aside those things you have no control over, because those things will drive you crazy, and it'll wear you down. You'll think, oh my God, I'll never be successful. I'm never going to find a job. That is crazy. And if you start thinking about or worrying about that, you absolutely will. It'll eat you alive. Now, as we close today, I want to share something with you that I think is extremely, extremely important. And one of the things that if you've been out in the market for a while, and I can tell you because I went through it as well, is that you have good days and bad days. As I said earlier, some days you're on top of the ball and you think you're going in the right direction, and the next morning you wake up and that sucker is on top of you. If it is, you can't waste too much of that day. You've got to come out fighting and get back on top of the ball. So I always begin my day with thinking about what's happened, what I need to happen. And a lot of times I do that in an attitude of gratitude. And sometimes I'll make notes to myself. These are the things I'm grateful for today. And when I do that, when I start thinking about the day and how lucky I am and how grateful I am to have another opportunity to try to break through, it fills my heart with hope and enthusiasm and and a desire to be more successful. So if you start your day, if you have gratitude, if you have hope, if you have enthusiasm, and if you take intentional action, you will be successful. I know that a lot of people say, John, that's just crazy. That's not going to happen. Well, the truth is that it can happen. And, I really want you to think about that. I know a lot of people out there, you're people of faith. I tell you, some people say, well, I'm not very religious right now. A prolonged job search will grab your attention and compel you to reacquaint yourself with your beliefs and your faith, because it's your ground foundation. It helps you get started for the day. And it's something that it can help you can fall back on. So start the day with gratitude, with hope, with enthusiasm, with intentional action, and that will produce success. I want to say how much I've enjoyed being with you today. We're coming up on 51 minutes after the hour, so you can get back to work or get back to searching for a job. If you have questions, you can reach me at john@johngself.com. That's john@johngself.com. If you would like a copy of these slides, you can email me at my address, and I'll be happy to share them with you. Now, for members, tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, we have office hours. If you're not a member, we want to encourage you to become one. And I want to share with you again, this is a video proposal that we're now using with potential new members. And this is our change in our business model. When I started this business, everything was pretty traditional. Your company signed a contract with an outplacement company, and the outplacement company gave them a discount based on volume. Okay. And at the end of the year, if they didn't meet their volume expectations, the company wrote the outplacement company a check. And, and if they did, then fine. Next year, they were in a position to discount for lower rates. Well, a lot of industries, those corporate to corporate relationships are pretty tough to break. And especially in smaller industries where one or two or three or five companies are really well known. And so what I realized is a lot of hospitals, a lot of businesses were not providing outplacement support. And if they did, it was very formulaic, and it was a very time set engagement. And it was just walking you through the various steps. And when it was done, you were on your own. Well, we don't believe in that. We believe in nurturing a long-term relationship. We believe that people want community, and we're looking for members who want to contribute to the community, sharing their experiences, being mentors, being somebody that can help somebody that's struggling with a job search to lift their spirits. So that's what we're trying to do here. And, it's something that I'm trying to put together, but, this is going to be your community, and that's what it's called, your career community. And I'll support it. I'll try to provide the logistics. I'll keep being a chief content creator, but I want your participation as well. The one thing I learned when I was a young father with a car loan and a new house payment, and I got fired from a job I loved, and it was through no fault of my own. There was a merger that they attempted to do, or a buyout, internal buyout, and it failed. And so, like in so many cases, the executives took everybody out in the parking lot with the buyer group and shot them. essentially. Everybody lost their job. They wanted me to stay on because I was their chief business development guy and was the guy bringing in most of the new business that was profitable. They had a lot of fire service contracts and a lot of other surveying things and power line businesses, but those were all very competitive. And the air ambulance business was a business that was sustainable. And I was suddenly was out of work. I lost a job I absolutely loved, and I really struggled for a long time. And there were days I didn't think I'd ever work again. And then I took a job, and I didn't ask all the right questions, and I didn't really understand the culture, and didn't fully appreciate that, and got in, and it was just a freaking nightmare. And what saved me was one day I was sitting in an office in that company, and my former boss called me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to buy hospitals." He said, "Why don't you come over this afternoon and have a cup of coffee with me? I have an idea I want to share with you because I think you can really help us." And that was the start of the process for me becoming the senior vice president for business development for affiliated hospitals. When I started, we had 3 hospitals. And when they decided to exit that business after about 9 or 10 years because of regulatory changes and litigation changes, we had 25 managed hospitals and 42 affiliated hospitals. And I love that job as well. But with my helicopter business and that hospital deal, I didn't see the end coming. I didn't have a new plan. I didn't have options available. And I really struggled. Both times I thought I'd never work again. And when you feel that way, old Terry Satterwhite, who was infectious disease at UT Medical School, Houston, he said, it's really hard to be productive when every day you get up and you feel like hammered whale shit. Well, pardon me, but I've had those days. I know you've had those days. In membership, if you're down, you need help, that's what I'm here for. I've been there. I understand it. And I care about the people that need my help. And, that's how I measure my worth and my value to the organization. And we want to bring people into the organization that can also bring that attitude of support and help for people that are experiencing, loss of a job. So I really want to thank you again. And again, if you missed it on the front end, here is our latest video proposal for our membership program.